Hello, everyone. It is Chrissy Alger here, and welcome to another episode of Freedom Uncensored. It's an interesting episode, this one. I haven't been historically a big money talker. You'll sometimes see people online sort of really putting themselves out there in regards to how much money they're making and profit. And, sometimes that's in the coaching space or the business mentoring space. And, I got to say, I've probably been a reluctant person to share my own experiences with cash, money, that side of things. More so, I won't get into the historic origins of where I think that comes from, trauma-wise, right? I won't bore you with my childhood experiences, but it has definitely been something that even today's episode, I've really sat down and weighed up. Do I really want to share, how much cash and profit and things that I'm producing? And I've decided that I will, because I think it comes from a place of really wanting to be transparent with my own journey, wanting to I want you to feel like you're on this ride with me, because I know that, being able to co-pilot with someone and observe and watch their journey, it's definitely been uplifting and inspiring to me to watch people that I look up to and I aspire to follow in their footsteps, to watch their process and their evolution, which is why I've decided that I want to share some more intricate details of cash and profit and things like that, hoping that it does provide a little bit of inspo for people out there that might be watching. So here I go. But last month I did a 75 profit month, which is, I have loitered in the realm of that level of profit before, but technically, when I look at all of my profit and loss statements, it is technically the highest profit month that I've ever done. Now, the challenge for me is, and I think it's the challenge for most salon clinic owners as well, is that, there's different challenges, I suppose, but I think one of the common challenges that I see is that people can produce revenue. For some, it's easier than others. Like for me, my experiencing of producing really high levels of revenue hasn't been too difficult. And I know that might sort of people go, oh my God, to produce a six-figure cash month, a seven-figure year. I do that relatively quickly in all of the startup businesses that I have that I've engaged in. Doesn't matter which business or enterprise I have been able to achieve very quickly high revenue. However, profit has always been volatile. I have previously experienced a very volatile relationship when it comes to actually cashing out of my business. And I think when I speak to this, I really speak also to a lot of the experiences of people in business, in that, the money keeps coming in and there is growth there. But as the business grows, so do the expenses. And you don't necessarily make more money as a result of that. And that becomes the real tension point, because I have definitely had cash months equivalent to the month that I had last month, but I've had nowhere near the amount of profit. And that has been challenging, obviously, when you come from a place of being able to pay bills comfortably and, being able to, pay that eye-watering tax bill that fucking jumps out of nowhere. And, as the expenses increase, that tension and that pressure, the responsibility that comes with higher levels of revenue and, higher levels of success can become more pressurized when you're not seeing the payoffs. You know, so some of my most difficult times in business have not been related to chasing the revenue and achieving revenue heights. It's been how much money is actually left over as a result of that. And I think we've all been there. Like, we've all been to that place where we've gone, oh, I wonder what it would be like to, you know, crack the million this year, and oh, I'll be this and this will be happening. And you have these big fantasies of what might be happening when you hit these revenue goals, whether it be monthly, whether it be yearly, whether it be quarter, whatever it is. And then you get there and you look around and you go, well, nothing's really changed. I'm still struggling to pay things. The tax man's still giving me the shits in terms of how much I owe. You know, I'm not necessarily getting the gains and the advantage that I thought I would get from reaching these revenue sort of hallmarks. My view is that it's mostly because you're not gaining, like, and the gain really is the cash flow, and then, you know, obviously the profit, the freedom, the gains that buys you. You know, it's the emotional experience of the money, you know, being able to take that overflow and be able to invest in something that you've been wanting to invest in for a long time, or buy the new family car, or take the family on a holiday, or pay the school fees with ease. Like, it's those emotional driven moments that really are the indicator of whether you're feeling good about, you know, your revenue, and whether it is actually paying you dividends, you know, because sometimes you can be producing revenue months and years that doesn't afford you any of those freedoms or those gains. And all it really starts to do is build more pressure, noise, and resentment, because you're growing in terms of revenue, but you're not necessarily getting the payoff for that. So that has very definitely been my relationship with money throughout my business journey. And I feel like through all of the business and the mentoring and the conversations that I've had with people, this is not an unusual experience for most people. So, you know, how do you get to, I'm on the journey to 100K profit months and beyond. It'll be a bit of a milestone for me to get the 100, and I'll, you know, the self-belief that I'm building along the way, that it's not it's not if, it's a when scenario in terms of that milestone. And I'm learning to celebrate milestones now. You know, probably 12 months ago, I would have looked at this and went, I'll just move on. What's the next thing? What are we doing next? But I've really stopped and taken the time, and this is part of the strategy that I want to share with you guys. When you have really strong standards and they're quite unrelenting, and you're driven, and there's some perfectionism, I suppose, about the way that you do things, you definitely do not stop and smell the roses. One of the things that I think really accounts for why I'm starting to grow in financial freedom and higher profit margins is because I'm really starting to stop myself and look around and go, isn't this awesome? You know, I'm really starting to be grateful for, you know, the clients that I've got, the people that choose me. You know, when I make a sale now, it's not just about, oh, yeah, well, there's another one. It's like literally going, how awesome is that? Someone's entrusted me and my program. And it's the same for you guys. Like, when someone buys the retail, or when someone invests in a treatment or a service plan, like for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, that's huge, right? You can fall victim to the, oh yeah, yep, that's just the norm, yep. And you can become a little bit complacent around celebration, that it just becomes an expectation, and you forget to really, you know, embrace and appreciate that moment. And I had definitely got to a place where it didn't matter what I was doing, nothing was good enough. It didn't matter how much revenue was being produced, how much profit was being produced. It was like, let's get on to the next thing. Let's do it quickly. Let's keep moving. Let's keep going. It was that real like, yeah, cool, let's go sort of energy, not let's actually stop, celebrate, really sit in the experience of going, this is awesome. How cool is it that I get to run a business? It gets to, feed into a lifestyle that's becoming increasingly more free, that, I don't need food. I don't need to worry about, financial pressures like other people might be, like actually stopping and smelling the roses, like actually stopping, and I think that we need to do that more. We need to stop looking at the sales and the commitment of our clients, even the commitment of our team members and their willingness to rise, and looking at that going, well, yeah, well, that's just what should happen, and really embracing and be grateful for that. So that's, some of what I've shifted a lot, particularly in the last 12 months. I think that, it comes down at the end of the day to really conscious decisions. It comes down to first and foremost awareness. So really leaning into understanding yourself more, doing the inner work, and finding parts of yourself that might need a bit of reconciliation like that. My unrelenting standards meant that I didn't celebrate anything. That's not great energy, right? And I'm going to talk to you about some of the strategy and the energetics that I leaned into to get to where I am in a moment. But, the trigger point for me was really realizing, shit, I'm just a miserable sod, really, aren't I? I'm not really appreciating much at all. And I need to kick up the ass around that. I think the other trigger point for me was that, I'd become very needy around results. I'd become very, oh, we have to do this and this should be happening and I need this to work. And there was a real desperate energy behind everything that I was doing, the way that I was investing, the way that I was making decisions, the way that I was strategizing my business was really coming from a place of desperation and need, which I come to learn when I get into the strategic part of this episode. I come to learn that really wasn't serving me. First and foremost, I didn't even know it was a thing until I started again that internal reflection and looking around and really self-appraising, well, where am I right now and what's not working for me? And I did pick up this pattern of neediness and desperation that was driving my action taking and driving my strategy, which effectively was holding me back, right? The other thing that was really holding me back that I came to realize was that I was basically there was a degree of outsourcing success. So, I became sort of, and again, this was this need and desperate energy. I'd go and buy a resource or a coach or invest in some information or something to improve the business. And then I would look at that investment and go, now this fucking better work. This, thing outside of myself better pay dividends, right? And it was the view that actually success existed outside of me, right? That I was pointing these fingers and I was exchanging this investment, and the expectation was that thing over there, whether it be that new team member, whether it be that new resource, whether it be the information that I just purchased, whether it be the system that I invested some money in, that was going to be the thing, right? The success of me investing in that was going to be the thing that gets me the results, right? And that was another bottleneck that I come to learn later on. So I want to talk to you about how I shifted some of these things, because I think that these are common blockages that I see people experiencing in business life, that I think once you're able to really understand that these might be relevant for you, you know, there's definitely some pathways around working on that to be able to come out the other side. And I think coming out the other side doesn't necessarily always mean more profit straight away, but it does definitely mean a much more healthier relationship with your business. You just feel better as a result of some of these shifts that I'm going to share with you. So, my journey with energetics has been a newer journey of late. For those of you that don't know, I moved to Bali 6 months ago. You know, there was a few reasons for that, but one of the core reasons was that, you know, I really had a calling to want to do some more transformative work. And there are resources and things available to me over here that I just didn't feel like I had available to me on the Goldie. Sorry, Goldie. But also there was just something energetically, if you want to call it that, there was something that, you know, when you just got this feeling that you need to do something and you can't really explain it, all you need to do is act on it. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because that's when, you know, intuition has always been big. There's been different times of my business journey where I've been tuned in versus when I haven't been tuned in, but that was definitely a moment where I tuned in and I thought, no, I can't really ignore this. I've got to actually follow through with it. But 12 months before that, I really started being exposed to work around energy, intuition, and understanding that in a way that made sense to me. Not this, you know, I used to have this view that, oh, it's all woo-woo and it's all a bit of bloody, manifestation. Do the work, man. Like, you're not just going to think and it's going to happen. You know, I had a bit of resistance until energetics and I suppose emotional intelligence and internal transformation and evolution started being presented to me in a way that made sense. So there's scientific backing around energetic work in terms of cellular energy and the way that it moves and what it attracts in exchange. And anyway, I won't go into all of the details of what turned me over, but basically I could start to see merit in some of the theories behind energy. So what started to happen was when I started going in and working out, why aren't I where I want to be right now? You know, the profit's not there. Yep, the revenue's increasing. All of that ego-driven sort of stuff is happening. The teams are growing. The client numbers or the business growth was sort of fizzling, but there was definitely things inside of me that needed to be looked at, because it wasn't through effort and commitment and discipline. And I was doing all of those things. Like, I'm one of the most disciplined people on the planet. I don't need injections of motivation. It lives in me. Like, I am so driven. I'm so committed. I'm so eye on the prize. But the offshoot of that was that there was a significant confusion and frustration around the fact that I wasn't where I wanted to be. And there was absolutely, in my opinion, no logical explanation for it. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't taking action. It wasn't like I was inconsistent. It wasn't like I didn't listen. It wasn't like you could bring out the ideal business owner checklist of all the things that you need to do technically to be successful, and I would have ticked every one of those fucking boxes, but it still wasn't working. Right. So that's when I had the forethought to go, well, it's got to be internal. Has to be internal. There's got to be some blockage in there. So I mentioned to you before about this need and this desperate energy. That was one of the big revelations to me, that the way that I was energetically driving myself was not from a good place. It was from a place of desperation. It was from a place of uncomfortable, not so much, because uncomfortable, I think, is positive. Like, I don't believe that anything worthwhile comes from comfort. Like, but it was what's the word for it? It was a frantic energy. Yeah, it wasn't nice. And I won't even say it was uncomfortable, because I think you can still have discomfort but be coming from a really grounded place. This wasn't a grounded discomfort. It was really desperate, it was needy, it was frantic at times, it was completely not grounded. And it was influencing my decisions, it was influencing my interactions, my communication, my leadership, everything. Now that has an impact, right? When you're coming from a place of desperation, neediness, frustration, the way that you communicate with your team is different. The way that you set goals is different. The way that you engage in actions is different. Your whole living experience is different, and it's not great. And because of the discipline, the commitment, the consistency, all of those things being there, I would still get growth. And that's what made it so confusing, because it's like, I'm doing all of the things. This is not fair. I am still getting growth, but what the hell is the missing piece? Right? And the missing piece was that energetic framework. So once I realized the place that I was coming from was first and foremost not good for me and my health, but it also wasn't getting me the desired outcomes, I really started to look up, well, how can I shift this? So it was about getting into the practices of activation, and not just self-care, like really going in, celebrating, like I mentioned before, starting to celebrate, starting to express gratitude, joy, like really starting to build the positive internal frequency that I needed to start to, and I won't even say like attraction is just such this woo-woo thing, but again, when you are omitting a frequency, it's much more likely that you're going to be met with things that are energetically aligned. And that's what exactly started to happen, right? So the need and the desperation started being replaced with things like appreciation, joy, gratitude, trust, right? That was one of the biggest things. Was I wasn't coming from a place of need and desperation. I started coming from a place of trusting and knowing that it's impossible to be as committed, driven, motivated, and consistent as I am and not get to the outcome. Right? It's not an if, it's a when. But I have to just calm my farm right now, right? And trust and know that it'll happen. And shift that energetic frame to just, I trust and I know. I can take the actions, I can make the moves, I can empower the team, and I can come from a place of trusting and knowing that everything is going to work out because it's who I am. It's the fact that I am the result, right? And that I get really good results, and I've never not got a result before, but accessing those next levels of success, or those unprecedented or incomprehensible results, like 75 profit month, on the road to 100, was going to mean that I needed to learn things about myself, and I needed to do things that I hadn't really done before. And energy, and the omission of energy coming from a place of knowing and trust, was a massive shift for me. There is obviously some tactical things that go along with this, I think that business owners will definitely relate to, but I wanted to start with the energetic side of things because I think it gets ignored. I see a lot of my coaching clients getting caught up in this need, desperation, sort of panic, overwhelmed approach to pushing forward that's awful, and effectively you start to fall out of love with your business because it's not a pleasant experience to be consistently coming from that place. And in fact, it's the reason why a lot of people burn out. They don't make it, right? So emphasizing the energetic importance is something that I really want you to take away from this conversation. So there's some strategic stuff as well. Like, I had a belief, an unhelpful one, that if I kept investing in resourcing, that it was going to pay off at some point, right? So I overinvested. particularly around team resourcing. So, buying more people, thinking that's going to get me more efficiencies, more productivity, more output. And, in the end, you can make those investments and it can result in that, but it also may not. Right. And I think that you need to be willing to make the call when it doesn't. And I had to make some really courageous moves. Like there were some people that, long-standing employees, there was some big moves that I needed to make, which meant that I had to reduce those resources or eliminate those resources. This happens with salon and clinic owners all of the time. They've got long-standing team members, and I'm not saying this is my exact circumstance, but just so that you can relate to this story in the way that you do. You invest in getting a new team member on board, and they might be costing you $1,000 a week. Now, if they're only making you $2,000 a week, they're not making you money, right? So you persist. Obviously, you put the work in, you do everything that you need to do, but there actually comes a time where you need to make decisions around that resourcing. And that was definitely something that shifted, not just in terms of people, but other investments that I was making. I really sat down and I went, do I need that? How much return on investment is that giving me? If it's not giving me the desired outcome or the result, even though it might be scary, and even though I might be used to having that resource available to me or having that team member or whatever it was, they had to go. It had to go. Right? It's just that point where you go, feel like I've thrown everything that I've got at this. It's not paying dividends, so it's got to go. Yes, it was scary, but it's that you're developing, again, the more courageous you are and the more steps that you take when you're scared, the more self-trust you're starting to build. And self-trust is one of those components I truly believe that the evolution of self-trust is one of the main contributors to you being able to access higher levels of success. The more you trust you build in yourself, the more courageous you move, the more knowing that you have. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, it really helps you move in ways that accesses those higher levels of success, right? So that cost analysis of what's working, what's not, and then being brave enough to cut, no matter how long-standing that system, process, person was, I just had to be brave. And that's what I did, right? So just that in itself, courageousness, willing to be bold, brave, make moves, willing to make calls potentially that might be incredibly uncomfortable, but on the other side of that, it's going to allow you to access things that you haven't been able to access before. That's another factor, and I think that, again, on the trajectory of success, you've got self-trust. Closely alongside that is courage. And the higher you go, the more courageously you need to move, right? It doesn't get easier. You just get better, right? You just get bolder. You just get more comfortable with the discomfort, or rising through it. So the final part, or the final evolutionary point, I think, that really culminated in that 75K profit month last month was, like I said, not only was it the energy behind my investing, like that desperate, needy, I'll buy this, but it better return, I'll get an extra team member, but it better work, it's got to deliver XYZ. So it wasn't only the energetic drive behind that, but effectively what I was doing also was outsourcing success. So I believed that, or I started to form a belief that my next level actually lived outside of me. It was existing in a program that I hadn't bought yet. It was existing in another coach out there that could help me with XYZ. It was existing in maybe another team member that I needed to optimize this or that, or it was existing in a program or a platform that was going to buy us XYZ efficiencies, or whatever it was. I believe that whatever the next level was, it was actually out there somewhere. It was outside of me, right? Like, and I've seen that with salon and clinic owners. Oh, you know, I'm going to be able to hit XYZ level when I buy this new machine, right? Or when I, if I do this coaching, is it going to get me the results, right? If I do, if I purchase this, it's that real externalization or outsourcing based on the belief that your next level of success completely exists outside of you. And I had a mentor say to me, you actually have everything that you need right now inside of yourself to blow up your business right now. You don't actually need anything else, right? And that really snapped a chord in me because I went, well, hang on a minute. That was that pivotal moment where I went, okay, so if that's true, then why am I buying all of these things? Why am I investing in this? And that's not to say you don't invest, right? But it's to say that you need to invest coming from the right place, right? Like I said, the investment needs to come not from a place of need and desperation. It comes from a place of trusting and knowing. I will buy this and I trust that I will be able to get the outcomes I need from this, or not. Even if I don't, it'll be okay. And I've learned a lesson in that, right? So the energetic place, but also I'm not investing in this because I know it's going to get me to my next level of success. It might be a tool or a resource or an opportunity, but actually the success will depend on me. It'll depend on how I'm implementing, how I'm receiving it, how I'm digesting the information, how I'm processing it, how I'm making it come to life, what I'm creating as a result of that investment. The success doesn't live in the investment, it lives inside of me. And that was huge. That was a huge revelation. And it was a pivotal step in my evolution to really starting to build a business that was profitable, that was based on the fact that I am the result, right? Everything lives inside of me. That to access my next levels, I need to be courageous. That, I need to come from a place of trust and knowing as opposed to need and desperation. And it was all of those things that started to shift the relationship with abundance and the fact that all of this money just started showing up in my bank account. And it wasn't a coincidence. Money showing up in your bank account is not a coincidence. It's a direct result of where you are, right? It's a direct result of your courageousness. It's a direct result of your self-leadership. It's a direct result of, who you are. That's how money shows up in your bank account. So I just wanted to stop there for a minute to just sit and digest that. So internal transformation, strategic transformations, obviously they go hand in hand. If you want to see more profit, more cash flow, more financial abundance, there's some key things that you need to think about, and I think there's some key messages that I want to leave you with here. I just lost my God, sorry, do this on the broadcast. Sorry, gang. Let me just bring up my passionate rant that I want to leave you with, right? So I would say that if you haven't made money in a long time, you've probably become very complacent about profit. It's just become who you are. I don't make money. Money in, money out. That's just who I am. And not that you would say that out loud to yourself, but if that's been your experience for a really long period of time, then I would say to you that there is probably a complacency and an identity connection to the fact that, you're just money in, money out, right? And if you don't shift and form an acceptance that that can be different, and you don't wake up to the fact that you need to move differently and you need to be someone different, you're never going to achieve financial freedom, those money or those profit levels that you're driving for. And I think the thing is, you know, if you're making all of the moves and you're on the journey, a mentor once said to me that your bank account is not a direct reflection of where you are on your transformation. It actually takes a while for that to catch up, right? So it's important that you don't sell out just because things aren't working for you, that you go, well, I'm doing all of the things like I did. I've made the investments, and where's my results? And that's just repelling the outcomes, because then energetically you're not coming from that place of knowing and trusting, right? And then that puts you in a position where you want to sell out. You're like, oh, well, selling out is just giving up on the hopes and dreams. Maybe I'll sell the business. Maybe I'll drop to a sole operator. Maybe if I insert avoidance or opting out scenario, right? That's you selling out on yourself, right? Because you're getting resentful of the fact that maybe you're doing some work, maybe you're starting to transform, but then you're commanding and demanding that the bank account catches up straight away, and that actually doesn't happen. You've got to be committed no matter what, no matter what. You've got to be committed because it's who you are, right? Your commitment doesn't match to the result. You've got to be willing to do the work no matter what the result is at the time, right? And that knowing and trusting of there is a way. It is achievable. It's not a matter of if, it's a case of when, and knowing and trusting that you're going to get there, that will get you there. So I'd love to know how this has landed for you guys. Drop a comment. I sometimes feel like I put this stuff out and I'm like, is anyone watching? I know there's people watching. I can see the views, but I'd love to hear from you. Chuck a comment in the comments.